We've been having a lot of discussion lately about retirement finances. How much do you need to retire? Worrying about you haven't got enough. What if the money runs out? But here I am in my Roma home this morning, and I spent the night in it last night in this most gorgeous location. I will show you around now. But I've been thinking that maybe we should be worrying about something much more important. What if, instead of worrying about money running out, how about we start being fearful of life running out first? So the point of this video is really to bring the focus back on much more important things than money. And I know we all need money, and I know we're all in different situations. But I think just being here, being away from home, being here where I am, I'm in Brecon, just outside Brecon. I arrived last night, tea time, threw some things in the van. This wasn't a long planned trip. I took food from home, stuck it in the fridge, and here I am. Me and Teddy had a great night last night. We're in a car park actually, but it's in the middle of a gorgeous parkland. The river is running alongside. The weather is scorching here in the UK, and we arrived sort of evening time, late afternoon, and yes, it was still hot, but there was enough of a breeze. Me and Teddy sat under a tree and just watched people arriving, families, elderly people, kids, teenagers arriving, and it was such a wholesome evening. They were arriving stacked with cool bags, chairs, blankets. People were setting up, having barbecues here. There's a special bin where you can dispose of your barbecues. Honestly, I love Powys. They have got it so right for outdoor life. People were arriving, splashing in the river. There were, even till quite late last night, people arriving in minibuses with their paddle boards and canoes or kayaks, not quite sure what they were, but you could hear people splashing in the river, just having a really good evening. You're allowed to stay overnight here. It's free to stay overnight, but you pay car park for the day. It's pretty reasonable and more than worth it. There are toilets here, they're locked overnight. There's a drinking fountain. It's so set up for enjoyment. I've been here a few times in the past, and like I said, you can relax, you can stay overnight, and it's just very relaxing. And I was thinking about what we've been talking about, the budgets and the money, and let's look, what does this cost me? It didn't cost me anything for food because I brought what I was going to eat at home anyway. I paid £1.50 to park before 6 o'clock last night, and then it's free overnight. This morning I've stuck another £5.50 in so I can stay here all day. Like, why do I need to leave? It's a beautiful location. There's toilets here, there's water, there's loads of shade, and Teddy can not do much, as she probably will choose to. So yeah, what did it cost me? £10 in diesel, maybe. I'm planning on moving on, so it's going to cost more than that. But I could have stayed home. I could have thought, well, you know, let's save some diesel. Stayed home. I would have had a very nice time at home, no doubt. But here's the thing. I would have missed out on that enjoyment last night. We can focus so much on not spending that potentially we're going to miss out on a bit of life here. I could have enjoyed some free activities at home, sure. But I do worry that we are racing to the bottom. Who can spend the least? I know people's situations are different. Not everyone has got the money. I recognise I'm fortunate. But I also recognise there's a lot of people out there with a lot of money worrying, nursing their money, checking their funds every day. Should they move it? The interest rate's gone down. Maybe they shouldn't have spent that on a meal last night. We are so concerned sometimes, and some of us, with spending less, that we're potentially missing out on so many great experiences in life. As I said, the bigger question is not on what we're spending, but running out of life. And I know from so many comments that people know people, many people who have wanted to just do that one extra year, and then before they know it, that person's died. They've not experienced what they were saving up for. So today I'm inviting a different conversation. For those of you who are hanging on to do one more year, it's that conversation, isn't it? One more year. But 1 year never is 1 year, is it? Because then you come to the end of that year and you think, well, oh, hang on, my savings have gone down. Maybe I should do another year to make up for it. I've always had a different mindset, and I know some of you think I'm reckless because I've shared my budget. But you see, I do have a trust. I do have a faith, and not necessarily in my own abilities, but I have had a faith that things will work out. I just heard an ambulance siren in the background. I wonder who that person is. Are they somebody who's been enjoying their retirement? Is it someone who was trying to do just another year and then get taken ill? There it goes again. It's a reminder, isn't it? If you've watched a few of my videos, you've probably gleaned that I am a person who acts very often quite impulsively and without giving too much thought to what ifs. I've been a worrier. I am a worrier, but probably not about money. I've always had a belief that things will work out. And I guess I congratulate myself that I've always put my well-being before the pound. And well, so far, it's worked out for me. That's not to say that things will go badly wrong in the future. But I guess what I'm saying is I'll cope with it if it does. I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things that are illustrating that very point. When I was in my 30s, the big sales job, I was actually a manager, team of 9 people. Can't believe I got that job. Been with the company a long time and got promoted. Big job, big pay, big responsibility, a lot of time away from home. My son was sort of independent. My daughter was still young. I was single and I had a house on my own with a big mortgage, but I wasn't worried about that because I had a great job and I'd been with the company for quite a long time and thought that job was pretty secure. I think you can guess what happened next. Restructures. I and all my management colleagues were made redundant in a huge company restructure. Now, I did start to panic. I've got this great big mortgage. How am I going to manage? I'd taken out the mortgage on the strength of the job I had. Added to that, I was already beginning to realise that this job was bigger than I was comfortable with. I was away from home. I had to do a lot of childcare organising to manage these 3 nights a week, very often away from home. And I'd started to miss the days when I had just been a regular salesperson, when I had a fairly small territory and I could manage things more easily. Of course, my pay was a lot less. Here I was, redundant. Now, the company looked after us. We were given a nice payoff. I had enough to last and pay for life for 6 months to a year if I was really careful. But I gradually started thinking, I need a job. I started looking at regular sales jobs, not sales manager jobs. The one question everybody was a little bit suspicious of was, why are you looking? You've been a manager, you've had a couple of years experience, why would you want to go back? The interviewers were suspicious that I was merely looking for a job to fill a gap and then would be wanting to move on once I'd got another manager's job. And I couldn't seem to convince people that, no, I don't want to be a manager anymore. I started to feel bad about myself, shame that I didn't want to keep on my big career trajectory. And then life took a different turn, and we had, I think it must have been 2008, because there was the banking crash. Anybody remember that? And this is what I mean about life. Sometimes we can't predict, and I always feel things will work out in the end, and they did. They worked out really well for me, because what happened with that banking crash? Interest rates plummeted. My mortgage that I could only afford on a manager's salary was now much more affordable. I had taken out a tracker mortgage. I wasn't fixed, so I could switch my mortgage, and suddenly my payments were literally halved. I eventually found a company that were willing to take a chance on me not wanting to leapfrog into a manager's job. I got a sales position again. Life became much better again. It worked out in the end. Here's another example. Years down the line, I was still single, mortgage, much smaller mortgage, and once again I'd found myself in a position, in a job that wasn't going so well. Things happen, don't they, in companies? You think, I love my boss, they're great, got a great understanding. These bosses never hang around for long. Before you know it, you've got a new boss and new company strategies, new ways of working. And suddenly I felt bullied by a boss. It was a woman, actually, a woman boss who, there was a mismatch. I became deeply unhappy. I used to have the Sunday scaries. This was one of those occasions where I would dread field visits. I would work myself up for a week before, dreading the ways I was being told to work in a way that was completely against my personality. Very stressful time. I reached a point where my mental health was suffering, but again, what do? I was applying for jobs, I wasn't getting them. Again, it was taken care of. Just had this lightning flash one day. I could just leave. What money can I scrape together that I can survive for 6 months? It's that FU fund that I've talked about before. I had some shares from one of my previous companies. The shares had done very well. So I sold my shares. It gave me enough for another at least 6 months. And the relief when I handed my notice in to that awful woman boss, I can't tell you. I could have skipped all the way. I told them in my exit interview why I was leaving. I wasn't the only one, by the way. This person had been under sort of an HR review a few times in the past, but nothing was ever done. Isn't that strange? So I was like breathing free. People were saying to me, well, oh God, what's your plan B? How are you going to manage? How are you going to pay your bills? What if you can't get another job? I was like, it'll work out. It will. I was single. I had my mortgage. There was no man paying my bills before any of you jump in with that. And of course I did get another job in a short space. I think I probably should have spent a little bit longer taking my time, deciding what to do. I was even thinking maybe a change of career. Maybe sales wasn't for me after all. But an opportunity presented itself. I was offered the job and I jumped ship straight back from the frying pan, as they say, straight into the fire. Yeah, that was the job that broke me. I did have probably 2 excellent years. This was the job where the boss told me I expect my workers to work, and you know, being the people pleaser I was then, oh boy, I wanted to prove how much I worked, and I did. I am actually a loyal, hard worker, and my first 2 years were brilliant. Of course, those of you in sales know what happens next when you have a few good years. Do you think they keep your targets realistic? No. They give you even bigger targets. So I had these ridiculous targets, and once again became very stressed. A new manager came in, someone who had a very different ethos to me, and suddenly, before you know it, the trackers that I'd always had on my car, never afraid of them, the company was saying, yes, we're having these trackers fitted, you don't need to worry, we're not monitoring you, it's really just for insurance purposes. The insurance will be a lot less expensive if we can have trackers on, and it's for your safety. Oh, right, okay. And then, not me actually, but word was going round from my colleagues, because we all spoke to each other, that it was being asked, why are you still at your house at 8 in the morning? Why aren't you in front of customers? Why are you home at 4 o'clock? You know, it was a really, really horrible working environment in the end. And once again, there I was, no job to go to. But by then, it was more than just I need 6 months off. This was my era when I had decided I want to be out by the age of 55. And I had probably 7 or 8 years to go. And I just thought, I really need a rethink. And that was where I've talked about on previous videos. It wasn't just a case of, I need funds to last 6 months. This was the point where I said, I need out, I need to be retired. I downsized my house. I did some pretty drastic things at that time. Paid off a huge chunk of my mortgage, so I had a very small mortgage. And because of that, I had a nice lump sum of money. And again, a gleeful day when I told that sales director I'm leaving. It was, honestly, I can remember the feeling I had. I met him in a coffee shop somewhere where I had to hand in all my laptop, my handover, my keys, my company car. I had to get a bus home, and the feeling, I was grinning from year to year as I got on that bus thinking, I am free. And again, people saying, you know, but you know, you can't retire yet. But I had that money, I had confidence that I could find something for myself. It wouldn't be in that type of role anymore. I wasn't worried, and my mortgage was much less, and just that freedom again. And I could create that opportunity for myself, because I wasn't worried about changing my circumstances. I wasn't worried about moving from a big 4-bedroomed house to a small house. A lot of people wouldn't like that. They would feel their status has changed. It didn't bother me. I knew, like I said, things would work out. They did work out. That's why I'm not worried now when so many of you are very worried about my finances. Here I am today. Look at this. And that's my point of this video. I could have been missing out on all of this. Any day I can just get up and decide to go. Doesn't cost that much in my camper van. It would be cheaper to stay at home, but like I said, I'm more interested in living. So going back, what happened? I think I was off work 6 months. And then a friend of mine suggested a company that she was working for. It was more like a subcontract organisation where I could reskill. I had to do some pretty big exams, but luckily I'm a person who likes learning. I got a job. It was a subcontractor, so I was more a gun for hire, if you like. For some people that would be a problem because the contracts tended to be quite short. It suited me. I didn't need that big job anymore. And it meant that I could know that if a company was, well, I wasn't enjoying this job, it wasn't going to last that long. And that was where I was until COVID struck, pretty much. So yeah, I guess those situations I've just told you about have given me confidence that by being prepared to adjust your expectations, to have a smaller house, to have less status, to swerve, to make do with less. I've been able to do that in the past. I know I would have been in a very poor emotional state by staying stuck, by being afraid of giving up my job. It's worked out for me in the end. I have a feeling that life just does. And I do very much have a belief that you do have to trust your gut. And it was my gut that told me to get out of those situations. And sometimes my gut isn't just a feeling, it's a physical reality. That last job, my back pretty much gave out. I was experiencing so much lower back pain. The job did involve some lifting and awkward things. My back, I could barely walk. I went to a chiropractor, and I genuinely think it was my body making me leave that job. I got treated. I do still get lower back pain, but yeah, I just think sometimes your body tells you when it's time to go. Now, to go back to today's situation. I guess the message is to those of you hanging on for one more year to build up your nest egg even more. Yeah, I would not swap this for all of those changes in the road, the swerves, the 6 months without jobs, the losing face on my CV, having to explain to interviewers over the years why I'd left a job with nothing to go to. You know, it was, I had to explain myself, because it's not the norm. Most people go from job to job with promotion to promotion, and it's a very upward curve. My life has not been like that, and yet here I am, grateful every single day to be able to come somewhere like this. And yeah, this is life. This is early retirement life, with maybe not all the spreadsheets the way some people would like. But I do invite you to have a little think about your situation. And maybe there's a lesson here for all of us. I'll see you on the next video.